The morphing grid had existed between dimensions since before humanity learned to walk upright. It was a lattice of pure energy connecting worlds, empowering champions across realities to stand against darkness. For 10,000 years, the Rangers had protected Earth, their legacy stretching back to ancient times when Zordon first established his connection to the grid. Now, 6 teenagers carried that mantle. Ordinary kids from Angel Grove transformed into extraordinary warriors by the power of dinosaurs and teamwork. They had no idea that the grid could scream. Jason Lee Scott felt it first, a wrongness that made his Red Ranger power coin burn against his chest even while unmorphed. The command center's alarms shrieked as reality itself began tearing apart around them. Billy's instruments exploded in showers of sparks. Zordon's energy tube flickered, his ancient face contorting in what might have been pain or warning. "Alpha, what's happening?" Kimberly shouted over the chaos, gripping her morpher as the floor buckled beneath them. "Aye! Unknown energy signature breaching dimensional barriers!" The small robot spun frantically, his sensors overwhelmed. "It's not Rita, not Zed, not—" The universe split open. It wasn't a portal. Portals implied control, precision, intention. This was a wound, reality hemorrhaging as something impossibly vast and malevolent pressed against the fabric of their dimension. Through the rift, Jason glimpsed an eye. Not a human eye. Not even a living eye in any sense he understood. An eye that was simultaneously infinite and focused directly on him, promising madness and damnation and power beyond comprehension. Then the grid reacted. The morphing grid, sensing corruption that made Rita Repulsa look like a playground bully, threw everything it had at the breach. It wrapped around its champions like a protective mother and hurled them away from the contamination. Jason felt his molecules scatter and reform 1,000 times in an instant. He heard his friends screaming. He heard something else screaming too. Reality itself protesting this violation of its fundamental laws. When existence reassembled, Jason was falling. Not the controlled descent of a Red Ranger leap. This was terror and velocity and the certainty of death rushing up to meet him. He slammed his morpher. "It's morphin' time! Tyrannosaurus!" The transformation that usually felt empowering now felt desperate. Red energy wrapped around him as he plummeted through a sky the color of infected wounds. The armor materialized, but felt wrong, heavier, draining, like the universe itself was fighting the morphing grid's presence. Below him stretched a city that made Angel Grove look like a village. Towers of rusted metal and corroded stone stabbed upward for miles, birching toxic smoke into an atmosphere that hadn't been clean in millennia. Billions of lives packed into structures that seemed designed to crush hope as efficiently as they processed industrial output. Jason hit a rooftop hard enough to crater the corroded metal. His Ranger durability absorbed the impact, but barely. He rolled to his feet, scanning for his team. Guys, come in!" Static answered his communicator. The grid's connection felt stretched, attenuated, like a rubber band pulled to its breaking point. Movement in the shadows between towering smokestacks. Jason's hand went to his power sword. "I know you're there! Show yourself!" What emerged made his blood freeze. They might have been human once. Now they were wretched things wearing flayed skin like robes, their bodies covered in self-inflicted wounds that wept pus and crawled with flies. They chanted in a language that hurt to hear, words that made Jason's armor flicker and his vision blur. The symbols they'd carved into their own flesh glowed with sick purple light. "By the power of the Plague Father flesh thing, you will join our eternal garden of despair," the lead creature gurgled through a throat thick with disease. "Your hope will rot, your strength will fester. You will know Grandfather Nurgle's blessing." Jason had fought thousands of monsters. clay golems, alien warriors, dimension-hopping demons. He'd never felt fear like this. These things radiated wrongness that went beyond physical threat. Looking at them made him feel dirty in his soul. But he was a Power Ranger. "I don't know who your plague father is," Jason said, drawing his power sword. The blade ignited with red energy that seemed brighter, more defiant in this darkness. "But I'm taking you down." He charged. The cultists moved with unnatural speed for creatures so diseased. Jason's sword cleaved through the first one, but instead of falling, it laughed, a wet, bubbling sound, and kept coming. Its guts spilled out, writhing like independent organisms. Jason gagged, spinning away and bringing his blade up to parry a rusted knife that shouldn't have been able to scratch Ranger armor, but somehow left a scorch mark. More cultists poured from the shadows, dozens, hundreds, all chanting, all diseased, all impossibly happy about their own corruption. Jason fought with everything he had, his training keeping him alive through sheer muscle memory. But the morphing grid was screaming in his mind, warning him that this place, this universe, was poison to everything it represented. His power reserves dropped faster than they ever had. Each transformation hit harder. Then the sky opened again. Not with the rainbow of light that marked Ranger arrival, with fire. Imperial drop pods hammered down like the fists of an angry god, crushing cultists beneath tons of reinforced ceramite. The pods burst open and soldiers emerged, if soldiers was even the right word. They stood 8 feet tall in armor that made ranger suits look like children's toys. Their weapons were blocks of metal that roared with chainsaw teeth or spat explosive rounds the size of Jason's fist. "Purge the unclean!" one bellowed, voice amplified through bone-shaking volume through his helmet. The Death Specters chapter of the Space Marines had arrived, and they made no distinction between diseased cultists and the unknown warrior in strange red armor. A bolt round screamed past Jason's head, close enough that he felt the heat. Another Marine turned his bolter directly at the Red Ranger. "Unidentified xenoform, stand down or be destroyed in the Emperor's name." Jason's communicator crackled. Through the static came Billy's voice. "Jason, found the others. Something's very wrong. This place, the energy readings are impossible." The transmission cut out as more bolt rounds tore through the air. Jason dove behind a support strut, his mind racing. Nothing about this situation made sense. Where were they? Who were these armored giants? What were those diseased creatures? And why did the morphin grid feel like it was being slowly smothered by the very atmosphere of this world? Above them all, hidden in the smoke and ash, something watched. Something that felt the morphing grid's pure energy enter its domain. Something that hungered for the corruption of uncorrupted souls. The Rangers had faced evil before, but they'd never faced the warp. And the warp had never tasted anything quite like them. Billy Cranston's first conscious thought after rematerialization was that the local gravitational constant was approximately 1.03 Earth standard, uncomfortable but survivable. His second thought, as he registered the 6-foot rat creature charging at him with a rusted blade, was significantly less academic. Triceratops! Blue energy erupted around him as he morphed mid-dodge. The transformation completed just in time for the rat thing's blade to screech across his chest armor instead of disemboweling him. Billy's power lance materialized in his hands and he thrust upward on instinct, catching the creature under its jaw. It died squealing, but 3 more replaced it instantly. Billy had materialized in what his suit's sensors labeled as a lower hive structure. Miles of corridors carved from stone and rust, lit by flickering lumens that had probably been failing for centuries. The air was so toxic his helmet's filtration system was already struggling. Background radiation exceeded safe levels by factors that made his scientific mind recoil. This place wasn't just dirty, it was fundamentally hostile to human life. "Billy, thank God!" Trini's voice crackled through his helmet comm as yellow and blue energy signatures converged. She materialized from a side corridor, her power daggers already slick with black blood. Behind her ran Zack, his power axe spinning to deflect crude projectiles fired by more of the rat creatures. "Anyone know where we are?" Zack shouted, his back slamming against Billy's as they formed a defensive circle. "'Cause this is definitely not the command center." "Dimensional displacement," Billy gasped, his lance impaling another creature. "The energy signature that breached our reality, it threw us somewhere else. Another universe entirely if my preliminary readings are..." "Duck!" They dropped as one. A gout of actual fire roared over their heads, immolating a dozen of the rat things in an instant. Standing at the corridor's end was something that made the mutant rats look cuddly by comparison. It stood 7 feet tall, but most of that height was a hunched, malformed back covered in suppurating sores. Its skin was the color of gangrene. In one bloated hand, it held a flamer that leaked promethium across the floor. In the other, it gripped a cleaver made from what looked like a rusted car fender. "Fresh meat for Papa Nurgle," it gurgled through a throat thick with phlegm. "Such pretty colors you wear. They'll look so much better when they're rotting." The creature that had once been a human Chaos Space Marine of the Death Guard advanced, and reality seemed to sicken around it. The already toxic air grew thicker. The walls wept new rust. Billy's sensors screamed warnings about contaminants that shouldn't exist. "Rangers," Billy said quietly, his scientific mind cataloging their situation with terrifying clarity. "I don't think we can fight that thing and win. Not here, not with our power levels already dropping." "Since when do Power Rangers run?" Zack's voice was defiant, but Billy could hear the fear underneath. "Since we got thrown into a nightmare dimension where the very atmosphere is trying to kill us. Tactical retreat isn't cowardice, it's..." The Plague Marine charged, impossibly fast for something so corrupted. Its cleaver swung in an arc that would have bisected all 3 Rangers. They scattered, Billy's analytical mind already plotting escape routes. But every corridor branched into 3 more, and those into dozens more, creating a 3-dimensional maze that stretched for miles in every direction. This architectural layout is deliberately disorienting. It's designed to trap and confuse. Whoever built this place wanted people to get lost and die here. "Working great so far." Trini leaped over a pile of refuse, her enhanced agility barely keeping her ahead of the Plague Marine's reach. "Billy, any brilliant ideas would be fantastic right about now." Billy's mind raced. The morphing grid's energy was foreign to this universe, which meant it should stand out like a beacon to his sensors. If he could just... There! 2 more Ranger signatures, approximately 300 meters spinward and 2 levels up. "Kimberly and Tommy! This way!" They ran, the Plague Marine's laughter echoing behind them, a sound that promised this hunt was far from over. The corridors blurred past, each one more decrepit than the last. Billy's suit's sensors painted a picture of a structure that had been maintained poorly for thousands of years, patched over and over with increasingly desperate repairs. They burst into a larger chamber, some kind of communal space, where thousands of gray-clothed workers huddled in the shadows. The workers looked up with eyes that had forgotten hope. They didn't run from the Rangers or the monster chasing them. They simply watched with the dull acceptance of people who'd seen every possible horror and survived purely through apathy. "Move! Get out of here!" Zack shouted. None moved. One old woman actually laughed, a sound more disturbing than the Plague Marine's gurgling. "Run where, stranger?" she croaked. "This is Hive Tertius. There is no away. There is only work, suffering, and death. In that order. Be grateful if you get all 3. The Plague Marine crashed through the doorway, scattering workers like bowling pins. It raised its flamer. Then, pink and white energy streaked from above. Kimberly swung down on a cable she'd somehow anchored to the ceiling rafters, her power bow already drawn. 3 arrows of pure energy slammed into the Plague Marine's weapon, and the flamer exploded in its hands. Tommy dropped beside her, Saba gleaming in his grip. "You guys look terrible," Kimberly said, though her voice carried relief. "You should see the other guy," Zack quipped. but even his irrepressible humor sounded strained. Tommy's posture was tense, his head tilted like he was listening to something the others couldn't hear. This place, it's wrong, not just dangerous wrong, fundamentally wrong. I can feel something pressing against my mind, whispering. Billy's sensors spiked. Tommy, your power signature is fluctuating. The Green Ranger powers were always tied to Rita's magic, which means they're more susceptible to corruption. I know. Believe me, I know. Whatever's in this place, it's like Rita's magic times 1,000, and it wants in. The Plague Marine, despite having its weapon destroyed and facing 5 Rangers instead of 3, laughed. Actually laughed, a wet bubbling sound that sprayed diseased spittle across the ground where it sizzled. You feel it, Green One. You hear Grandfather's call. You've known corruption before. How easy it would be to embrace it again, to stop fighting, to let the rot take you and find peace in decay. Tommy's grip on Saba tightened until the weapon vibrated. I beat Rita's control. I'll beat yours. Rita Repulsa, the Plague Marine chuckled. What a quaint name for a petty sorceress. The ruinous powers make her look like a child playing with finger paints. You have no idea what real corruption. Saba's blade took the creature's head off in one clean strike. The body stood for a moment, then collapsed, already beginning to dissolve into diseased sludge that made Billy's sensors go haywire with biohazard warnings. Okay, Tommy said, breathing hard. Okay, I'm fine. It's fine. Let's find Jason and get out of here. Agreed. But Tommy, if you start feeling, I'll tell you, I promise. Tommy's voice was firm, but Billy noticed how his friend's hand never left Saba's hilt, how his eyes kept darting to shadows, how, when no one was looking, his expression was one of barely controlled terror. They moved through the hive structure together now, following Billy's sensors toward Jason's signal. The workers watched them pass with that same dead-eyed stare. No one asked for help, no one begged for rescue. They'd learned long ago that heroes didn't exist in the 41st millennium. Billy, Kimberly said quietly, as they navigated a particularly narrow passage. Where are we, really? Billy checked his readings again, hoping they'd changed. They hadn't. Based on the stellar positioning I've been able to map, the technology level, the architecture, and the entities we've encountered, we're approximately 40,000 years in the future. And based on the cultural indicators, the religious iconography, the barely maintained infrastructure, the sheer scale of human suffering, we're in what appears to be a galaxy-spanning human empire that's been in slow decline for millennia. So we're in the future? Trini asked. No, Billy said grimly. This isn't Earth's timeline. This is something else. Something that went very, very wrong. Can we get back? Zach's voice was small. Billy didn't answer. His sensors had just detected something that made his blood run cold. 3 massive energy signatures approaching their position, each roughly equivalent to a Zord in terms of raw power output. Everyone, Billy said carefully, I think we're about to have company. Big company. The wall exploded inward. Through the breach stepped something that made even the Plague Marine look weak. 10 feet of mechanized armor, painted bone white and decorated with skulls. Its very presence seemed to push back the hive's corruption, creating a bubble of stern, merciless order in the chaos. An interrogator chaplain of the Dark Angels chapter had found them, and his skull-faced helmet turned to regard the Rangers with lenses that glowed red with targeting lock. In the name of the Emperor of mankind, you will surrender yourselves for questioning. You will explain your xenotechnology. You will confess your allegiance to the ruinous powers. You will do this now, or you will be purged. Behind him, 2 more Space Marines took position, their bolters trained on the Rangers with the steady aim of warriors who had never missed. Billy's hand moved slowly to his morpher. Around him, his friends did the same. They were exhausted, low on power, lost in an impossible future, and now facing humanity's greatest warriors who clearly thought they were the enemy. "Guys, what do we do?" Zach whispered. For the first time since becoming a Ranger, Billy Cranston had absolutely no idea. Interrogator Chaplain Asmodai of the Dark Angels had lived for 273 years. He had fought across 1,000 battlefields. He had extracted confessions from heretics, traitors, and Xenos abominations that would break lesser men's minds just to hear described. He had stared into the faces of daemons and never flinched. His faith in the Emperor was absolute, his duty was clear, and his purpose was singular. Find the fallen, extract their confession, grant them the Emperor's mercy. But in all his centuries of service, he had never encountered anything quite like the 5 warriors in impossibly colorful armor who stood before him now. "I will ask once more," Asmodai said, his Crozius Arcanum crackling with power field energy. "Identify yourselves, declare your allegiance, explain your technology." The blue one, clearly their tech specialist based on the scanning device he kept glancing at, stepped forward with hands raised. "Please, we don't want to fight. We're not your enemies. My name is Billy Cranston, and we're not from around here." "That much is evident." Asmodai's auto-senses analyzed their armor, power signatures that didn't match Imperial technology, Xenos design, or Chaos corruption, something entirely other. "Your weapons emit energy that our auspex cannot classify. Your armor bears no mark of the Imperium, the Mechanicus, or any known Xenos species. Yet, you fight Nurgle's Chosen with surprising effectiveness. This leaves 3 possibilities. You are renegade tech heresy, undiscovered Xenos, or something worse." "Fourth option," the white one said, his hand resting on a talking sword by the throne that radiated its own distinct energy signature. "We're from another dimension entirely. We got pulled here by accident through some kind of rift." Brother Cadmus, positioned to Asmodai's left, voxed on the secure channel. "Chaplain, their story reeks of warp taint. Dimensional travel is the province of daemons." "I am aware, brother. Keep them contained." Asmodai studied the white one more carefully. There was something about him, a shadow in his aura, a familiar taint that every dark angel was trained to recognize. This one had known corruption before, had overcome it perhaps, but the stain remained. "You," Asmodai pointed his Crozius at Tommy, "the green and white one, you carry the mark of previous possession. Your soul bears scars. Speak truth. What held you?" Tommy flinched, and Asmodai knew he'd struck correctly. The white warrior's grip on his blade tightened. "Evil Empress from our world. She controlled me through a cursed power coin. My friends freed me. I've been fighting for good ever since." "Cursed power coin," Asmodai repeated, "and yet you continue to use this cursed power." "It's been purified." The pink one, female, young, far too young to be a warrior yet, carrying herself like a veteran, interjected. "Tommy's power comes from Zordon now, not Rita. He's proven himself 1,000 times over." "Zordon, Rita, these names mean nothing." Asmodai took a step forward. His brother's weapons tracked the movement, ready to fire on his command. "What matters is this. You arrive in Hive Tertius during a Nurglite incursion. You wield unknown technology. You claim dimensional origin, the very language of chaos, and one of you admits to previous corruption. By interrogation protocols, I should execute you all and examine your remains." "But you haven't," Billy said quietly. His analytical mind was working. Asmodai could see it. because something doesn't add up. We fought those diseased cultists. We killed that plague warrior. If we served chaos, why would we do that? Chaos turns upon itself constantly. Rival factions war eternally. Your opposition to Nurgle means nothing. Then examine our energy signatures more carefully. I don't know how your technology works, but you're clearly scanning us. You must be able to tell that we're not corrupted, that whatever energy we use, it's not whatever powers those things we've been fighting. Brother Cadmus voxed again. Chaplain, their energy signatures are remarkably pure. Alien, yes, but pure. No taint of the warp, no daemon touch. Our sensors cannot explain it. Asmodee's mind worked through possibilities. The Fallen sometimes employed bizarre technologies in their attempts to hide, but this felt different. These warriors were clearly young. Despite their evident combat training, they carried themselves with an optimism that died in most Imperial citizens by age 5. They asked questions. They hesitated. They cared about each other with open affection that would be beaten out of most guard recruits within their first week. They were hopeful. It was deeply disturbing. "Lower your weapons," Asmodee commanded. His brothers hesitated a microsecond before complying. They knew his judgment, even when they questioned it. "You will accompany us to our forward command post. You will submit to deeper scanning. You will explain everything, your origin, your technology, your purpose. If I detect even a whisper of falsehood, I will execute you myself. Is this understood?" The 5 warriors exchanged glances, some kind of silent communication. The Red One, their leader, hadn't spoken yet. Asmodee recognized command presence when he saw it. The Red Warrior was evaluating, calculating, making the decision that would bind them all. "We'll cooperate," the Red One, Jason, Billy had called him, finally said. "But we need to find our equipment. Our vehicles got separated from us during the transit. Giant mechanical constructs, probably scattered across this world." "Giant mechanical..." Asmodee's vox crackled. "Describe these vehicles." "Each one is approximately 50 meters tall," Billy supplied, "resembling prehistoric Earth animals, dinosaurs specifically. They're powered by the same energy source as our suits and respond to our mental commands. They're also, effectively, our only way home if we can repair the dimensional breach." Asmodee's autosenses immediately correlated this information with a report he'd received 3 hours prior. Approximately 700 kilometers spinward, a Mechanicus survey team had detected 5 massive unidentified objects that had impacted across Tertius's industrial sectors. The Mechanicus tech priests were already en route, their hunger for unknown technology overriding even their fear of potential contamination. "Your vehicles have been detected. The Adeptus Mechanicus will be converging on their locations as we speak. If your constructs are indeed xenotechnology, the Mechanicus will dismantle them for study. They do not ask permission, and they do not return what they claim." The Rangers' reactions were immediate and visceral. The blue one looked horrified. The yellow one's hands curled into fists. The black one actually took a step forward before catching himself. But it was the red one's response that concerned Asmodee most. Jason's posture shifted from cooperative to combative in an instant. "Those Zords are our responsibility," Jason said, his voice carrying command authority that reminded Asmodee disturbingly of actual Imperial officers. "They're connected to us. If your Mechanicus tries to dismantle them without understanding their power source, they could trigger a catastrophic energy discharge that would level half this hive." "Is that a threat?" "That's a warning," Jason replied. "The Morphin Grid's energy isn't meant to exist in this universe. We've already noticed our power levels dropping, the energy becoming unstable. If someone starts tearing into a Zord without knowing what they're doing, the resulting explosion could measure in the kiloton range." Asmodee's extensive experience with threats, bluffs, and truths told him the Red Warrior wasn't lying. "Then we will recover your Zords before the Mechanicus dismantles them," Asmodee decided. "Not out of compassion, but because I will not allow rogue tech to detonate in an Imperial hive. You will guide us to these constructs. You will demonstrate they are not weapons of chaos, and then you will surrender them to proper Imperial authority for containment until your dimensional breach can be assessed by those with greater authority than mine." "And if we refuse?" the White One asked, his hand still on that talking sword. "Then I will execute you, and we will contain the Zords regardless, accepting whatever detonation occurs as the Emperor's will." Asmodai let that sink in. "But I suspect you will not refuse, because despite your strange origin and bizarre technology, you are soldiers. You understand chain of command. You understand that in hostile territory, survival sometimes requires cooperation with forces you do not fully trust." More silent communication between the five. Finally, Jason nodded. "We'll cooperate, but you need to understand something, Chaplain." Jason emphasized the title, showing he'd been paying attention. "Where we come from, we're heroes. We protect people. We fight evil. If we see people suffering, we help them. If we see injustice, we stop it. That's what Power Rangers do. That's who we are. If you're expecting us to just stand by while bad things happen, that's not going to work." Asmodai stared at the Red Warrior for a long moment. Heroes, protection, justice. Such quaint concepts, such naive idealism. This universe would crush it within days. "Then you will learn quickly that this galaxy contains more suffering than you can possibly prevent, more injustice than you can possibly stop, and that sometimes survival means accepting hard truths about the nature of reality. Come, we must move before the Mechanicus claims your technology." He turned, trusting his brothers to keep the Rangers contained. As they moved through the Hive's corridors, Asmodai contacted his strike cruiser in orbit. "Brother Captain, this is Asmodai. I have encountered potential Xenos or perhaps something else, requesting immediate extraction and transfer to command. Also, contact the Mechanicus survey teams at coordinates," he transmitted the Zord impact locations, "and delay their investigation until we arrive. Tell them it's a matter of Imperial security." The response was immediate. "Understood, Interrogator Chaplain, but be advised, a massive Orc fleet just translated into system. Warboss Grimskull is inbound with at least 40 capital ships. The Greenskins will reach Tertius within 6 hours." Of course, because the situation wasn't complicated enough already. Asmodai glanced back at the Rangers, who were following in a tight formation, clearly unused to the Hive's oppressive atmosphere and the dead-eyed stares of its inhabitants. "Rangers," he said, the word foreign on his tongue, "I hope your Zords are functional, because we are about to face an Orc War, and if your giant mechanical constructs can actually fight, the Imperium may tolerate your continued existence." "Orcs?" the Red One asked. "What are—" The Hive shook. Dust rained from ancient girders. In the distance, sirens began wailing, attack warnings that the Hive dwellers had heard so often they barely reacted anymore. "You're about to find out," Asmodai said grimly. "Welcome to the 41st millennium. There is only war."
The forged temple of Tertius Prime squatted in the industrial heart of the Hive like a mechanical tumor. A cathedral dedicated not to the God Emperor, but to the machine god, the Omnisia, the sacred union of flesh and steel. Tech Priest Dominus Hexachord 7 Epsilon surveyed the 5 massive objects that had fallen from the sky like the fists of an angry god, and his augmented mind sang with possibility. Unprecedented, his binaric cant broadcast across 17 frequencies simultaneously. Technology classification, unknown. Design principles, non-imperial, non-Xenos standard, non-chaos corrupted. Energy signatures, impossible. The constructs were magnificent. Each stood approximately 52 meters tall, their designs evoking biological organisms, yet clearly mechanical in nature. One resembled a tyrannosaur, another a triceratops, a third some kind of prehistoric mastodon. They'd impacted across 5 different industrial sectors, crushing factories and hab blocks that had stood for millennia. Hundreds were dead from the impacts, but Hexachord 7 Epsilon felt no concern for the flesh. The Omnisia provided new flesh constantly. These machines, however, these were unique. His survey servitors swarmed over the red construct, the Tyrannosaur design, probing for access panels, cutting into armor plating, attempting to interface with systems that refused to acknowledge Mechanicus protocols. Tech Priest Dominus, one of his subordinates, Lex Mechanic 9 Theta, transmitted. Armor composition defies analysis. Molecular structure suggests metals that should not exist. Energy signatures generate readings that violate thermodynamic principles, requesting permission to engage extreme measures. Denied. Preserve integrity. This technology must be understood, not destroyed. Hexachord 7 Epsilon extended his mechadendrites, allowing them to interface directly with the Tyrannosaur's surface. His consciousness touched something vast and alien, not machine spirit as the Mechanicus understood it, but something alive in a way that made his organic components shudder. The Zord rejected him violently. Energy sparked along his mechadendrites, frying tertiary circuits. Hexachord 7 Epsilon retracted, his binary irritation broadcast loud enough that nearby servitors twitched. These machines possess awareness. They reject external interface. They are waiting. Waiting for what, Dominus? Unknown. Perhaps. Tech Priest Dominus, Hexachord 7 Epsilon. A human voice, unaugmented, speaking low Gothic instead of proper binary cant. Disgusting. You will cease your investigation and withdraw your personnel immediately. Hexachord 7 Epsilon rotated his upper body 180 degrees to face the speaker without moving his legs, a modification he'd made specifically to unsettle baseline humans. It was delightfully effective. Interrogator Chaplain Asmodai stood at the perimeter of the worksite, accompanied by 2 Dark Angel Space Marines and 5 figures in bizarre colored armor that made Hexachord 7 Epsilon's aesthetic subroutines scream in protest. The colors were so vibrant they seemed to hurt to observe. Negative, Chaplain. Adeptus Mechanicus claim supersedes Astartes' authority in matters of technology recovery. Mars Protocol 77 Alpha grants us primacy in... These constructs, Asmodai interrupted, his voice brooking no argument, are potentially volatile. Their owners have indicated they may detonate if improperly accessed. As Tertius is currently facing an orc invasion, I am invoking emergency military authority. You will withdraw. The Red Warrior, Jason, Asmodai had called him, stepped forward. Despite the helmet hiding his expression, Hexachord 7 Epsilon's emotion analysis algorithms detected a mixture of relief and anxiety in the human's body language. Tyrannosaur, Jason called out, his voice carrying across the worksite. If you can hear me, power down to standby. We're here. Everything's okay. The effect was immediate and impossible. The Tyrannosaur Zord's eyes, massive amber lenses that had remained dark since impact, ignited with brilliant red light. The entire construct shifted, servos and joints moving with precision that made Hexachord 7 Epsilon's envy subroutines activate involuntarily. The Zord rejected him. Impossible. The energy surge suggests a psychic connection, but these humans register as total blanks, no psyker potential whatsoever. Yet somehow they commanded these machines with thought alone. The other Zords, Billy said, his helmet's heads-up display visible through the transparent faceplate, fascinating design choice, showing him data streams. I'm reading their signatures. They're all in standby mode. Kimberly, your pterodactyl is closest, 3 sectors spinward. I can feel her, Kimberly said softly. She's scared. This place it's hurting her somehow. Her? Hexachord 7 Epsilon broadcast? The construct possesses gender identity, emotional state? This violates fundamental principles of machine consciousness.
They're not machines the way you understand them, Billy explained, his scientist's mind clearly delighting in the opportunity to explain, despite their circumstances. There's something between biological and mechanical, living metal, you might say, animated by morphing grid energy and bonded to us through... Enough, Asmodai cut him off. Tech Priest, you will assist in recovering the other 4 constructs before the orcs arrive. In exchange, you may observe but not interfere. After the immediate threat passes, proper authority will determine disposition of this technology. Unacceptable. The quest for knowledge is secondary to survival. If the orcs capture these constructs, do you believe they will allow you to study them, or will they weld them to their own crude war machines and use them to crack this hive open like an egg? Hexachord 7 Epsilon's logic matrices processed this. The chaplain was correct, as much as it pained his quest for knowledge subroutines to admit it. Terms accepted, but I demand full sensor recordings of these Zords in operation. Document what you wish. Rangers, can you move your constructs? Jason placed his hand against the Tyrannosaurus sword's leg. The armor plating was warm, almost alive. We can pilot them, but we need all 5 to form the Megazord, and with our power levels as low as they are, he checked his morphers reading. 73% and dropping. They'd been in this universe less than 6 hours. We'll have maybe one good combination and fight before we need to demorph. Then we'll make it count. Asmodai activated his Vox. Brother Captain, this is Asmodai. I require transport for 5 massive constructs and their operators. Can the strike cruiser's teleportarium handle objects of that size? The response took longer than usual. When it came, Brother Captain Balthus sounded distinctly uncomfortable. Negative, Chaplain. Objects that large would require multiple trips, and the Orc fleet is now 2 hours from engagement range. However, I have an alternative option. A Mechanicus Arc Mechanicus. The Omnissiah's Triumph is in system. They have cargo capacity for all 5 constructs. Coordinate with them. I want extraction within 30 minutes. As Asmodai organized the recovery operation, the Rangers spread out to guide their Zords to a central location. Billy remained near Hexachord 7 Epsilon, unable to help himself from examining the Tech Priest's augmentations with genuine admiration. "Your cybernetics are remarkable," Billy said, his voice carrying genuine admiration. The integration of biological and mechanical components at this level should be impossible with conventional technology. How do you prevent rejection? Sacred unguents, ritual preparations, the blessings of the machine god. You understand technological principles? I'm something of an inventor back home. Built most of our equipment, actually. Upgraded our weapon systems, modified our... Billy caught himself. Sorry, I'm rambling. It's a defense mechanism when I'm stressed. Rambling is inefficient, but curiosity is the first principle of the quest for knowledge. Your morphing grid technology, it defies classification. Explain. Billy knew he shouldn't. Giving detailed technical information to an unknown faction was tactically unsound, but he was a teacher at heart, and Hexachord 7 Epsilon was asking questions with genuine scientific interest. The morphing grid is an interdimensional energy lattice. It exists in a space between dimensions, connecting infinite realities. When we morph, we're not just putting on armor, we're channeling that energy through our bodies, transforming on a molecular level, while our consciousness links with the grid's power. The Zords work similarly, acting as massive amplifiers and physical vessels for grid energy. But the grid isn't meant to exist in your universe. The fundamental physical laws are different here. It's like trying to run water through a pipe designed for electricity. It works, but inefficiently, and if we're not careful, the sky tore open. Not figuratively, literally tore, reality splitting like rotten fabric as the Orc fleet translated from workspace directly above Tertius. Dozens of ships, if ships was even the right word for the flying junk heaps held together by shoddy welds and Orc belief that they should work. Each one was kilometers long, covered with guns that had no business functioning but did anyway through sheer Orcish conviction, and every single one was pointed at the Hive City below. Orc fleet has arrived, Hexaccord 7 Epsilon transmitted unnecessarily. Probability of survival decreasing exponentially. Jason's voice cut through the rising panic. Rangers, to your Zords, now!
They scattered, each sprinting toward their respective Zord with enhanced ranger speed. Jason reached the Tyrannosaurus and leaped, his body moving with practiced precision as he entered the cockpit through an access port that opened at his mental command. The interior was exactly as he remembered: the command console, the viewing screens, the connection seat that would link his mind directly to the Zord systems. Tyrannosaurus Dinozord, online! Jason's hands moved across controls as his consciousness merged with the massive machine. Power flooded through the connection, and for a moment he felt 50 meters tall and unstoppable. Around him, the other Zords activated in sequence. Mastodon Dinozord, power up! Triceratops Dinozord, ready! Saber-toothed Tiger Dinozord, online! Pterodactyl Dinozord, systems go! The 5 Zords stood in formation, and for the first time since arriving in this nightmare universe, the Rangers felt like themselves. This was familiar. This was right. Giant monsters attacking? They had this. Except the monsters descending from the sky weren't clay golems or rubber-suited minions. They were Orc attack craft, dozens of them, screaming down through the atmosphere with all the aerodynamic grace of falling bricks, but somehow staying airborne through pure Orcish stubbornness. Their weapons were already firing, crude but devastating explosives that cratered the Hive's surface. Okay, Zack said over the comm, his Mastodon Zord taking defensive position. Okay, this is fine. We've fought flying enemies before. Billy, what's the tactical assessment? The tactical assessment, Billy replied, his Triceratops Zord sensors painting a picture he didn't want to see, is that we're outnumbered approximately 40-1 in an unfamiliar combat environment with power reserves at 70% and dropping, facing an enemy force that seems to operate on principles that violate known physics and, oh, Emperor's Throne, what is that? The largest Orc ship, a battlecruiser that had to mass several megatons, opened its hangar bays. What emerged made even the Rangers, veterans of countless monster battles, feel a spike of primal fear. Orc gargants, walking war machines that stood nearly as tall as their Zords, covered in enough guns to level a city block, piloted by Orc mechs who believed bigger was better and more DACA was always the answer. One of them, painted in garish lead with flames and a grinning Orc face welded to its chassis, pointed directly at the Tyrannosaurus Dinozord and broadcast on every frequency. "All you gets in the flashy stumpy things, Warboss Grimskull says we's gonna crump ya and take ya gubbins for our own, so hold still so we can shoot ya proper." Jason's hands tightened on his controls. "Rangers, I think we're going to need Megazord power." Agreed, Tommy added from his Dragon Zord, which had been recovered from an industrial sector where its arrival had flattened an entire ammunition factory. But Jason, if we combine in this universe with our power levels already compromised... I know, but look at this place, Tommy. Look at what's about to happen. Jason's viewing screen showed the Hive City, billions of people, living in misery, yes, but living. The Orc bombardment was already killing thousands. These people need help. That's what we do. That's who we are. Even if it kills us? Kimberly asked quietly. Even then. The Rangers didn't need to vote. They were a team. They'd made this choice 1,000 times before. All right, team. Power Rangers, initiate Megazord sequence. The Zords moved as one, each transforming and combining with the fluid grace of machines that were more than mere metal. The Tyrannosaurus formed the core, the mastodon and triceratops the legs, the saber-toothed tiger the right arm, the pterodactyl folding into chest armor. In less than 30 seconds, the 5 separate Zords had become one towering combatant, the Mighty Morphin Megazord. The power sword materialized in its hands, crackling with red energy. From orbit, Warboss Grimskull, a creature of pure violence and cunning who'd never seen anything quite like this in 40 years of warfare, grinned with genuine delight. "Now that," he bellowed to his crew, "that's a proper fight! All Gargants attack! Let's crump the shiny git!" The battle for Hive Terratus had begun, and across the galaxy, powers far greater than orcs or rangers took notice of the brilliant beacon of impossible energy that had just ignited in the material realm. The Morphin Grid had come to Warhammer 40K, and the universe would never be the same.
The Megazord's first step shook Hive Tertius to its foundations. 50 meters of combined dinosaur power moving in perfect synchronization, 5 minds linked through the morphing grid into a single unified consciousness. Inside the cockpit, the Rangers felt the familiar rush of connection. Jason's tactical leadership, Billy's analytical precision, Kimberly's grace, Trini's balance, Zach's rhythm, all flowing together into something greater than their individual parts. Then the first orc Gargant opened fire, and the familiar became nightmare. "Incoming!" Billy's sensors screamed warnings a microsecond before the world exploded. Dozens of guns, crude, oversized, held together with spit and prayer but firing anyway, unleashed a storm of ordnance that would have pulverized a city block. The Megazord's shields flared, absorbing impacts that made the entire frame shudder. "Shields holding at 87%, Billy reported, his voice tight. "But that energy expenditure was massive. Each hit drains our reserves faster than it should. This universe's physical laws are actively fighting the grid's energy." "Then we end this fast." Jason's hands moved across the controls, the Megazord responding with the precision they'd honed through countless battles. The power sword came up in a defensive stance as 3 more Gargants lumbered forward, their pilots howling with orcish glee. The Megazord was faster. Decades of Earth martial arts translated through giant robot combat as Jason drove them forward, the sword slashing through the first Gargant's torso. The orc machine sparked and died, collapsing in a heap of scrap metal. "One down," Zach shouted. "Only 39 to go. Piece of cake." The second Gargant swung a massive power claw. The Megazord caught it, servos straining, and Trini's instincts took over, a judo throw that sent the orc machine tumbling into a hab block. The structure, already weakened by millennia of poor maintenance, collapsed in a cloud of toxic dust. How many people had they just killed? The thought flickered through all 5 Rangers simultaneously. Back home, their battles happened in quarries, warehouses, desert valleys, places they could fight without civilian casualties. Here, every step risked crushing thousands of lives lived in desperate squalor. "Focus," Jason's command cut through their horror. "We can't think about that now. We save who we can." The third Gargant charged, and this time they were ready. The Megazord sidestepped, 50 meters of metal and energy moving with impossible agility, and drove the power sword through the orc machine's back. It exploded in a fireball that painted the toxic sky orange. From his command ship in orbit, Warboss Grimskull watched his Gargants fall, and his grin widened. "Boys, that shiny git just crumped 3 of our best stompas. That means it's time for the really big guns. Prepare the mech dread." On the ground, Interrogator Chaplain Asmodai observed the battle with growing concern. The Rangers' combined machine fought with skill that would shame most Titan crews, but their energy readings were dropping at alarming rates. His auspex showed their power reserves already down to 61%. "Tech Priest," he voxed to Hexacord 7 Epsilon, who'd remained to document everything. "Your assessment?" "Fascinating, terrifying, impossible.
The construct's combat efficiency exceeds Imperial Knight standards, but the energy drain suggests catastrophic failure imminent. Estimate 12 minutes until complete power loss. Then we have 12 minutes to evacuate this sector. Asmodai opened the command channel. All Imperial forces pull back 2 kilometers. Establish defensive perimeter. If the Rangers fall, we hold this line. The Megazord destroyed 2 more Gargants, each victory costing precious energy. Inside the cockpit, the Rangers felt the drain like physical exhaustion. Their morphed bodies were literally being depleted, the morphing grid struggling to maintain coherence in a universe hostile to its very existence. "Jason," Kimberly's voice carried warning, "I'm reading massive energy spike, something big incoming." The mech dread descended from orbit on roaring thrusters, a monstrosity that made the Gargants look like toys. 80 meters tall, covered in armor plating a meter thick, bristling with enough weapons to wage a small war, and painted in checkered patterns that hurt to look at. The pilot, Big Mech Dakafist, was legendary among the orcs for building things that shouldn't work, but did anyway through sheer orcish conviction. "Oi, shiny git, you're proper tough, so I'm gonna crump you myself. Then I'm gonna take your stumpy thing apart and build it even bigger." The mech dread charged. The impact when they collided sent shockwaves that shattered windows across 3 sectors. The Megazord staggered, alarms screaming, as the orc machine's power claw raked across their chest armor. Sparks flew, systems failed. The connection between Rangers wavered.
Shield integrity failing. Billy's hands flew across his console. Rerouting auxiliary power. "It's not enough," Trini shouted. "This thing's too strong." The mech dread's guns opened up at point-blank range. Solid shot, missiles, energy weapons of questionable design but definite lethality, all hammering into the Megazord's weakening defenses. The power sword came up, deflecting some hits, but they were being overwhelmed. Jason's mind raced. They were losing, actually losing. The Megazord had never been overpowered like this before. Every monster they'd faced, they'd eventually triumphed through teamwork and determination. But this universe didn't care about heroism or determination. It only cared about raw power and grinding attrition. "Rangers," he said quietly, even as another impact rocked them, "I think we need to retreat." The words tasted like ash. Power Rangers didn't retreat. They fought until they won. That was the code Zordon had taught them. That was who they were. But Zordon had never sent them to a universe like this. "Agreed," Tommy's voice cut through the comm. "But you're not alone. Dragon Zord!" The Dragon Zord, green and gold, erupted from the industrial sector where it had been waiting, Tommy having held back to provide support. The Dragon Zord's tail whipped around, slamming into the mech dread's back and staggering the orc machine. "Sorry I'm late," Tommy's voice carried forced cheer. "Traffic was murder." The momentary respite let the Megazord disengage. The power sword slashed across the mech dread's arm, severing the power claw in a shower of sparks and hydraulic fluid. "You busted me best claw! Now I'm really gonna crump ya!" "Rangers," Jason's voice carried across both Zords. "Power up! Mega Dragon Zord formation!" It was their strongest combination, the Dragon Zord and Megazord merging into an even more powerful configuration. But in this universe, with their power levels critical, it might be suicide. They did it anyway. The transformation took precious seconds. The Dragon Zord separated into components, attaching to the Megazord's frame, adding armor and weaponry. The Mega Dragon Zord stood complete, towering even over the mech dread, its power reserves now at a critical 42%, but its combat potential doubled. "All right, you overgrown pile of scrap," Jason said, channeling every ounce of heroic determination he had left. "Let's finish this. Mega Dragon Zord power!" The combined machine moved like liquid lightning. The enhanced power sword, now crackling with both red and green energy, became a blur. The mech dread fought back with everything it had, but the Rangers had something orcs didn't: perfect synchronization. 6 minds, 1 purpose, total coordination. The final strike took the mech dread's head clean off. The orc machine stood for a moment, then toppled backwards, crushing an abandoned factory complex in its death throes. In orbit, Warboss Grimskull stopped grinning. "Well, that's actually pretty impressive. Boys, full bombardment! Turn that whole sector to slag!" "Jason, Billy," his voice was barely a whisper. "Power at 38%. We can't sustain this. We need to separate and demorph before..." The orbital bombardment began. Not precision strikes, not tactical fire, just pure, overwhelming destruction raining from the sky. Orc logic said if a few guns didn't work, use all the guns. Hundreds of vessels opened fire simultaneously, turning the sky into a curtain of falling death. The Mega Dragonzord's shields flared, holding, failing, dying. Warnings screamed. The Rangers felt their connection to the grid stretching like a guitar string about to snap. "Separate, now!" Jason commanded. The Mega Dragonzord split back into Megazord and Dragonzord. Both machines staggered, their power reserves dropping into critical levels, 28%, 25, 20. "Emergency demorph!" Billy shouted. The Zords separated into individual Dinozords. The Rangers felt the transformation rip through them as they powered down, their bodies suddenly human again, falling from cockpits into the toxic air of Hive Tertius. Dark Angel's Thunderhawks swept in, catching them mid-fall. Asmodee's voice crackled through their helmets. "We have you. Your machines are entering standby mode. We must evacuate this sector immediately." "But the people," Kimberly shouted, watching the bombardment continue. "There are millions still..." "Already dead or dying," Asmodee cut her off with brutal honesty. "You cannot save them. The Imperium cannot save them. This is war in the 41st millennium. Accept it or die with them." Jason, strapped into the Thunderhawk's crash seat, his Power Ranger powers completely depleted, watched through the viewport as Hive Tertius burned. They'd won the battle, they'd destroyed the Orc ground forces, but the orbital bombardment would kill more people in the next hour than they'd saved in their entire fight. This universe didn't care about heroes. For the first time since becoming a Power Ranger, Jason Lee Scott understood what true helplessness felt like.
The Dark Angel's strike cruiser Vinco Redemptor hung in high orbit, its weapon batteries tracking Orc vessels with machine precision. The Rangers had been brought aboard, deposited in a holding chamber that was less guest quarters and more very comfortable prison cell. Their Zords had been tractored into the ship's massive cargo holds, Alpha and Omega bays, each large enough to house Imperial Knights, but barely sufficient for the Dinozords. Jason sat on a bare metal bench, his body aching in ways he'd never experienced. Demorphing usually left them energized, the grid's power fading cleanly. This time felt like withdrawal. His muscles trembled, his head pounded. The power coin against his chest was cold, dormant, struggling to recharge in this hostile universe. "Jason," he said quietly, "report." Billy looked up from the datapad he'd somehow convinced their guards to provide. Apparently, the Dark Angels respected intellectual curiosity, or at least understood that keeping Billy's mind occupied prevented panic. The morphing grid is being actively rejected by this universe's fundamental laws. It's like, imagine trying to grow a plant in poison. The grid can exist here, but it's constantly fighting to maintain coherence. Every time we morph, we're forcing reality to accept something it fundamentally opposes. "How long until we can morph again?" Trini asked. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, looking smaller than Jason had ever seen her. Conservative estimate, 4 hours for basic morphing capability, 8 for full power, 12 before we could safely attempt Megazord formation again. And those numbers assume the grid can even recharge properly in this environment, which, Billy gestured helplessly, I honestly don't know.
Zack punched the wall, immediately regretted it as his unpowered hand protested. So we're useless. Great. Perfect. We get thrown into hell and immediately get benched. We're not useless, Kimberly said, but her voice lacked conviction. We just need time to adapt. Time. Tommy stood at the viewport, staring out at the battle still raging in orbit. Orc ships and Imperial vessels exchanged fire in a dance of mutual destruction that lit the void like fireworks. Millions, Asmodai's voice cut through their despair as the door opened. The interrogator chaplain entered, still in full armor, his skull-faced helmet tucked under one arm. Without the helmet, his face was surprisingly human, scarred, weathered, but human. Millions of dead. Asmodai's perfection didn't change. Hive Tertius houses approximately 8 billion souls. The Orc bombardment will kill between 2 and 3 million before we drive them off. Another million will die from infrastructure collapse, toxic exposure, and starvation in the aftermath. This is considered an acceptable casualty rate. Acceptable? Kimberly was on her feet, rage overriding exhaustion. You think millions of deaths are acceptable? I think they are inevitable. Asmodai's expression didn't change. This hive world produces munitions for 3 entire sectors. Its factories must continue operating. If we evacuate, the orcs claim the infrastructure. If we surrender, they enslave the population. If we fight, which we are doing, people die, but the Imperium survives. This is the calculus of war in the 41st millennium. That's insane, Jason stood, confronting the Space Marine despite the size difference. You're talking about human lives like they're numbers on a spreadsheet. Because that is precisely what they are, Asmodai's voice remained level. The Imperium contains over 1 million worlds, trillions of human souls. We lose entire planets regularly. If I paused to mourn every death, I would never stop mourning.
So instead, I do my duty. I fight the enemies of mankind. I preserve the Imperium so that humanity survives another day. Your grief is understandable, but it is also a luxury we cannot afford. The Rangers stared at him, and for the first time they truly understood the gulf between their universe and this one. They'd always fought for individuals, to save Angel Grove, to protect their families, to stop Rita from conquering Earth. But this universe operated on scales that made individual suffering irrelevant. There has to be a better way, Billy said quietly. Some solution that doesn't require accepting mass death as normal. If you find one, Asmodai said, and something in his voice suggested genuine hope buried under millennia of grim-dark pragmatism. I will listen, but 10,000 years of history suggests otherwise. The Imperium is brutal because the galaxy is more brutal still. We are cruel because kindness is exploited by things that make your nightmares look pleasant. We sacrifice millions because the alternative is extinction. A chime interrupted them. Asmodai touched his vox bead. Speak. Brother Captain Balthus's voice crackled through. Chaplain, the orcs are withdrawing. War Boss Grimskull has decided Tertius is too much work for not enough loot. They're translating to the warp. We've won. Casualty report? 2.4 million civilians dead on Tertius, 3 Imperial Navy vessels lost, 5 damaged. Orc losses estimated at 60% of their fleet. By Imperial standards, a decisive victory. Jason felt sick. 2.4 million people dead, and this Space Marine was calling it a victory because it could have been worse? Your machines, Asmodai continued, turning back to the Rangers, were instrumental in that victory. The destruction of the Orc ground forces prevented them from establishing beachheads. Without you, casualties would have been double, perhaps triple. You saved millions of lives today. By killing millions more, Tommy said bitterly. No, the Orcs killed
killed them. You simply failed to prevent every death. There is a difference, though I understand it may not feel that way." Asmodai paused. "I am not your enemy, Rangers. I am not even certain you are my enemies. But you must understand, this galaxy will crush your idealism, your heroism, your hope. Not because it is evil, but because it simply does not care. The question is whether you will adapt or break." "We don't break," Jason said quietly. "We're Power Rangers. We find a way." "Then I will give you opportunity to prove that." Asmodai activated a holo projector. An image appeared, a sector map showing Tertius and surrounding systems. "Your Zords have been detected by forces beyond just the Orcs. The Adeptus Mechanicus wants to study them. The Inquisition wants to interrogate you. Chaos cults across 3 systems have begun chanting about false prophets in colored armor. And my own chapter command wants you brought to the Rock for deeper questioning." "So we're prisoners," Trini said. "You are persons of extreme interest. The distinction is subtle but important." Asmodai zoomed the map to a distant system. "There is a world, Salvation's End, under siege by a chaos warband known as the Crimson Teeth. The world is not strategically vital, so Imperial response has been minimal. The population numbers only 300 million. By Imperial standards, its loss is acceptable." "But not to you," Billy said, listening between the lines. "I am Dark Angels. We hunt the fallen, traitor Marines from our own legion who must be brought to justice. Intelligence suggests one of the fallen leads the Crimson Teeth. I am authorized to mount a rescue operation. You would accompany me. In exchange for your assistance, I will provide you with time, resources, and access to our tech marines to help you understand how your technology functions in this universe. You might even find a way home." "And if we refuse?" Kimberly asked. "Then you remain here while various Imperial authorities decide your fate. That process could take years, during which time your morphing grid continues deteriorating in a hostile environment. Your chance of returning home diminishes, and you sit in comfortable cells while the galaxy burns around you." It wasn't really a choice. The Rangers exchanged glances, their silent communication language developed through years of teamwork. "What exactly would we be doing on Salvation's End?" Jason asked. Asmodai's expression was grim. "The Chaos Marines are converting the population, mass rituals, forced corruption. Within days, 300 million souls will be damned, not dead, but worse, their very essences consumed by the warp, feeding the dark gods. You asked if there was a better way. Here is your chance to prove it. Save Salvation's End. Show me that your heroism can function in the 41st millennium." "And the fallen?" Tommy asked. "Leave him to me. Your targets are the corrupted Marines and the demonic entities they've summoned. Fair warning, daemons are not monsters in any sense you understand. They are made of pure warp stuff, malevolence given form, corruption incarnate. They will attempt to turn your own strengths against you. Your hope will become despair. Your courage will become recklessness. Your teamwork will become paranoia." "We've faced mind control before," Zack said. "Rita, Zed, Master Vile, they all tried to corrupt us." "Your previous enemies were children playing with matches compared to the Chaos Gods playing with nuclear fire." Asmodai's voice carried absolute conviction. "But perhaps your morphing grid offers protection, or perhaps you are simply fortunate. Either way, you have approximately 12 hours to rest and prepare before we make warp jump to Salvation's End." "We'll do it,"
Jason said immediately, before his team could voice the doubts he saw in their eyes. "We'll save those people." Asmodai nodded slowly. "I hope you can, for their sake and yours, because if you fail, if you are corrupted by chaos, I will execute you myself, not out of cruelty, but mercy. Death is far preferable to what the dark gods do to souls they claim." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "One more thing. Your power, this morphing grid. When you fought today, I felt something I have not felt in many years. Not hope, precisely, but possibility, as if the universe's certainty of grim, dark inevitability flickered for just a moment. Whatever you are, you do not belong here, but perhaps that is exactly why you are needed." The door sealed behind him, leaving the Rangers alone with their thoughts and the cold reality that their next battle would be against literal demons. "Well," Zack said into the silence, "at least things can't get worse." Outside the viewport, unseen by any mortal eye, something stirred in the warp. The Chaos Gods had felt the morphing grid's arrival. Pure, uncorrupted energy, souls untainted by millennia of grim dark despair. Young, hopeful, powerful, delicious. The great game had new pieces, and the Dark Gods were very interested in playing.
The Vinco Redemptor's training halls were designed for space marines, warriors who stood 8 feet tall in armor and could punch through concrete. For normal humans, even enhanced ones like the Rangers, the equipment was comically oversized, but Asmodai had provided them access anyway, understanding that warriors needed to move, to train, to maintain their edge even in rest. Jason worked through kata forms, his body moving through patterns ingrained by years of martial arts. Every strike, every block, every stance, muscle memory and discipline keeping him centered. But something was wrong. His movements felt sluggish, imprecise. Without the morphing grid's enhancement, he was just Jason Lee Scott, 18-year-old high school student from Angel Grove. Not weak, but not superhuman either. "You're telegraphing your right hook," a voice said. Jason spun. Tommy stood at the hall's entrance, still in the dark red tunic and black pants they'd been provided. His expression was troubled, shadows under his eyes. "Couldn't sleep?" Jason asked. "Didn't try." Tommy moved into the hall, taking up position at a training dummy designed for Space Marine strength. His first punch barely dented it. "This place... Jason, I can hear it." Jason's blood went cold. "Hear what?" "Whispering. Since we landed on Tertius, I've heard voices at the edge of my hearing, promising power, offering understanding, telling me that I could protect everyone if I just stopped fighting and accepted what I truly am." Tommy's hands clenched. "It's like being under Rita's control again, except worse. Rita was external, a spell I could break. This feels internal, like it's reaching into parts of me I didn't know existed." "The warp," Jason said quietly. "Asmodai warned us, it targets weaknesses." "And I'm the weak link." Tommy's voice was bitter. "I'm the one who's been corrupted before, the one whose powers came from evil originally. Of course I'm the vulnerable one." "That's not—" "It is true, and you know it." Tommy finally looked at him, and Jason saw real fear there. "I'm terrified, Jason. Not of the fighting, not even of dying. I'm terrified I'll turn on you, that whatever's whispering to me will find the right words, and I'll become what Rita wanted me to be, except this time there won't be any magic candle to break me free." Jason crossed to his friend, gripping his shoulder. "Then we make sure you're never alone with those voices. We're a team, Tommy. That's what makes us strong. When one of us struggles, the others carry them. You carried us through that first battle as the Green Ranger. Now we'll carry you. And if I can't fight on Salvation's end, if the Chaos presence is too strong, then you stay on the ship and coordinate from here. We adapt." Jason's voice carried absolute conviction. "But Tommy, you need to tell Asmodai about this. He needs to know." "He'll execute me. He said anyone corrupted by chaos."
You're not corrupted. You're being targeted. There's a difference, and he'll understand that. Space Marines have to deal with this constantly, right? They must have protocols. Okay, yeah, I'll tell him. He paused. Jason, what if we can't win here? What if this universe is just too broken? Then we do what Rangers do. We fight anyway. We save who we can. We show them that heroism isn't a luxury, it's a choice, even if the whole galaxy says it's impossible. Jason managed a tired smile. Besides, we're teenagers with attitude who pilot dinosaur robots. Impossible is kind of our thing. Despite everything, Tommy laughed. It was brief, but genuine. In the medical bay, 3 decks down, Billy was having a very different conversation with Tech Priest Hexacord 7 Epsilon. The Tech Priest had demanded really, permission to examine the Rangers' morphers, and Billy had agreed on condition he be present for every test.
Fascinating, Hexacord 7 Epsilon transmitted, his mechadendrites interfacing with Billy's morpher through connections that looked disturbingly organic. The device is simultaneously technological and not. It operates on principles that should not function, yet they do. The quantum matrices alone would require computational power exceeding imperial standards by factors of 10 to the 16th. The power coin is the key, Billy explained, watching readouts. It's not just a battery, it's an anchor point to the morphin grid itself. When we morph, we're not drawing power from the coin, we're using it to access the grid's infinite energy. Infinite energy violates thermodynamic laws. In your universe, yes, but the grid exists between dimensions, in a space where normal physics don't apply. Billy struggled to find words. It's like the grid is an ocean, and our morphers are straws that let us drink from it. The amount we can draw is limited by our human capacity, not the grid's total volume. Then why does your power diminish here? Because this universe is poison to the morphin grid's energy. Every time we morph, we're forcing that ocean to flow through a pipe designed for completely different liquid. The energy itself remains pure. That's why we don't show chaos corruption, but the efficiency is terrible. We lose power maintaining the connection rather than actually using it. Hexacord 7 Epsilon processed this. Hypothesis: if the morphing grid could be adapted to this universe's physical laws, efficiency would improve. Maybe, but that would require understanding fundamental universal constants in ways I'm not sure anyone can. We're talking about rewriting reality at a quantum level. The Adeptus Mechanicus has studied reality at quantum levels for 10,000 years. We have failed to comprehend it. But the Tech Priest's optical sensors focused on Billy with something approaching respect. You comprehend your technology. You do not simply operate it through rote ritual. You understand the principles. This is refreshing. Billy blinked. Wait, you don't understand how your own technology works? Most of it, no. It is archaeotech, recovered from the dark age of technology and maintained through sacred ritual. We know what functions produce what results, but the underlying principles were lost millennia ago. To build new technology is heresy. To modify existing technology is blasphemy. We maintain, we preserve, we do not innovate. Billy's mind recoiled. That's insane. Technology advances through innovation, experimentation, understanding. Such thinking led to the age of strife, to thinking machines that turned on their creators, to weapons that broke reality. The machine god teaches innovation is corruption, preservation is sacred. But that means you're slowly losing capability. Every piece of ancient tech that breaks and can't be fully repaired, every STC that's lost, you're regressing, not progressing. Correct. The Imperium has been in technological decline for 5,000 years. This is known. This is accepted.
Hexachord 7 Epsilon paused. But your morphing grid, it represents understanding, true understanding, not ritual, not blind faith, knowledge. If such technology exists in other universes, perhaps the quest for knowledge is not as heretical as the dogma suggests. Billy realized he might have just accidentally started a religious crisis in a tech priest. Look, I'm not trying to undermine your beliefs, but maybe there's room for both. Respect for ancient knowledge while also pursuing new understanding? Such thoughts would see me declared heretic and executed, yet I cannot deny their logic. The tech priest retracted his mechadendrites. I will assist you, Billy Cranston, not because Asmodai ordered it, but because the quest for knowledge is the first principle of the Omnicia. Your technology may be the key to understanding principles lost since the Dark Age, and perhaps innovation need not be heresy. In her assigned quarters, Kimberly stared at her morpher and tried not to cry.
She'd always been the heart of the team, the one who kept spirits up, who found silver linings, who believed in happy endings. But this universe didn't have happy endings. It had acceptable losses and Pyrrhic victories and endless grinding war. Hey, Trini entered without knocking, carrying 2 cups of something the ship's servitors had claimed was recaf. It tasted like motor oil smelled, but it was hot. Thought you could use company. I keep thinking about those people on Tertius, Kimberly said quietly. The ones we saved by destroying those orc machines. Except we didn't really save them, did we? We just postponed their deaths. They'll go back to their factories, work until they die of toxic exposure or exhaustion, and the Imperium will call that a good life, because at least they weren't eaten by orcs. I know, Trini sat beside her. I keep thinking about that old woman, the one who laughed when Zack told people to run, like the concept of somewhere safe was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. How do people live like this? How do they survive without hope? The same way people survived the Holocaust, or the killing fields, or any other horror in history, Trini said softly. They endure. They find tiny moments of meaning. They protect what little they can. It's not the heroic resistance we're used to, but it's still resistance. Survival itself is defiance. Kimberly finally looked at her friend. Trini, what if we can't save Salvation's End? What if we fail, and 300 million people get consumed by chaos demons, and it's our fault for not being strong enough? Then we fail knowing we tried, that we didn't accept acceptable losses, that we fought even when the universe told us it was pointless. Trini took her hand. Kim, we might not be able to fix this whole galaxy, but we can make a difference where we are, and sometimes that has to be enough. Is it enough for you? Trini was quiet for a long moment. No, but it's all we have, so it'll have to be. They sat in silence. 2 teenage girls from Angel Grove trying to process a universe that had forgotten what kindness meant, holding on to each other and the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could remind it. On the bridge, Asmodai received a priority transmission. Inquisitor Covenant's face appeared on the hololith, a woman whose augmented eyes glowed with power and whose expression promised swift execution for anything she deemed heretical. Interrogator Chaplain, she said without preamble, I am aware of your guests, the colored warriors with impossible technology. By rights, I should claim jurisdiction immediately. By rights, Asmodai agreed carefully, you could. Why haven't you? Because I am intrigued, and because Brother Captain Balthus spoke highly of their combat effectiveness against the orcs. The Ordo Xenos is always interested in weapons that can be turned against the Imperium's enemies. Her eyes narrowed. But understand this, if they show even a whisper of chaos taint, if they endanger Imperial citizens, if they prove to be a threat, I will not hesitate. I have authorized orbital bombardment of entire hive cities to contain corruption. 6 teenagers, however unique, mean nothing to me. Understood, Inquisitor. See that you do. Covenant out. The transmission ended. Asmodai stared at the empty hololith and made a decision he knew the Inquisitor would call mercy, and mercy in the 41st millennium was often indistinguishable from heresy. He would give the Rangers every possible chance to succeed, not because regulations demanded it, but because some small part of him, the part that remembered being human before becoming a weapon, wanted to believe that heroism could still matter. Even here, even now, even if it damned him.
The warp jump to Salvation's End took 6 days of subjective time. 6 days trapped in a ship punching through literal hell, protected only by ancient technology and the Emperor's will. The Rangers spent that time training, planning, and trying not to think about what waited on the other side. Billy worked with Hexacord 7 Epsilon obsessively, documenting everything about their morphers and attempting modifications that might improve efficiency in this universe. Most failed. A few showed marginal promise. All of them pushed Billy to the edge of exhaustion. "You need rest, Billy," Trini said, finding him in the tech bay at what the ship's chronometer claimed was 0300 hours. "Can't." Billy's hands shook as he calibrated sensors. "If I can't improve our morphing efficiency, we're going into battle at half power. That could mean the difference between saving Salvation's End and watching it fall. Or you collapse from exhaustion during the fight because you haven't slept in 40 hours. Trini physically pulled him away from the workbench. "The team needs you functional, not brilliant but unconscious." Billy wanted to argue, but his body betrayed him with a yawn that nearly cracked his jaw. "Maybe an hour, just 1 hour. 4 hours minimum, doctor's orders." "You're not a doctor." "Close enough. Come on, genius. Sleep now, save the world later." On the observation deck, Jason and Asmodai stood watching the warp roil beyond the Geller fields, reality's nightmare made visible, where physics died and madness reigned. "Your Tommy spoke to me," Asmodai said without preamble, "about the voices." Jason tensed. And I have assigned him a chaplain's ward, a psychic blessing that offers minor protection against warp influence. It is not perfect, nothing is, but it may help. Asmodai's eyes remained fixed on the warp storm outside. "Your friend is strong, stronger than he knows. The fact that he heard corruption's call and chose to confess rather than hide it suggests a core of integrity that chaos finds difficult to crack. Will it be enough? Unknown. But I have fought beside warriors for centuries. I know strength when I see it. Tommy Oliver is not weak. He is cautious, which is wisdom, not cowardice." "Thank you," Jason said quietly. "Do not thank me. If he falls, I will kill him, quickly, mercifully, but without hesitation. This is the only kindness we can offer those claimed by chaos." "I'd expect nothing less," Jason replied, and meant it. He was learning this universe's brutal calculus. Sometimes mercy wore a muzzle flash. Asmodai finally turned to Jason. "Tell me about your world, Jason. What makes it worth fighting for?" The question surprised him. It's not perfect. We have problems. Crime, corruption, inequality. But we also have hope. People generally try to do the right thing. When monsters attack, civilians evacuate instead of accepting death as inevitable. When heroes fight, they usually win. Good triumphs over evil, even if it takes time. A fairy tale. Our reality, or it was before we came here. Jason met Asmodai's gaze. "I know you think we're naive, that this universe will break us. Maybe you're right, but I'd rather break trying to stay who we are than survive by becoming someone we're not. Even if that stubbornness gets you killed, especially then, because Power Rangers don't just fight monsters. We show people that monsters can be beaten, that evil isn't inevitable, that one person or 6 can make a difference. If we abandon that, we're not Rangers anymore. We're just soldiers in colorful armor." Asmodai was quiet for a long time. There is a passage in the Codex Astartes, a quote from Robute Guilliman, our Primarch. "I am not your son returned. I am merely an echo of a better time, bearing witness to a nightmare." I think of that often. We Dark Angels were once knights, serving justice and honor. Now we are hunters, obsessed with secrets and shame. We forgot what we fought for, and became only what we fought against. Then remember, help us save Salvation's End, not because it's strategically important, but because 300 million people deserve the chance to not be damned. You speak as if damnation is avoidable. In my universe it is. Maybe here too, if someone tries. The observation deck's doors opened. Zack entered, moving with forced casualness that didn't hide his tension.
Jason, we're dropping out of the warp in 30 minutes. Asmodai, your captain wants the Rangers on the bridge for briefing. They moved through the ship's corridors, joining the others. On the bridge, Brother Captain Balthus stood before a tactical display showing Salvation's End, a temperate world, green and blue, beautiful from orbit. But even from space, the corruption was visible. Cities burned, strange auroras crackled across the atmosphere, and orbiting the planet like a mechanical vulture was a chaos vessel, a strike cruiser corrupted and twisted into something that hurt to perceive directly. The Crimson Teeth's flagship, Despair's Whisper, Balthus explained. 3 companies of Chaos Marines, maybe 200 warriors total, plus cultists, possessed humans, and demonic entities we cannot accurately count. They've established ritual sites in every major city. In approximately 16 hours, those rituals will complete. Every soul on Salvation's End will be consumed, their life force feeding the warp and manifesting something extremely bad. Something like what? Kimberly asked. Unknown. Could be a greater demon, could be a permanent warp rift, could be something that makes both of those look manageable. Chaos rituals are unpredictable. That's part of what makes them terrifying. Our mission, Asmodai continued, is threefold. First, disrupt the major ritual sites in Capital City Prime. Second, evacuate as many civilians as possible. Third, I will locate and confront the fallen leading this warband. Rangers, you will focus on the first 2 objectives. Can your Zords function in atmospheric combat? If we can morph them, yes, but we'll need to conserve power. I estimate we have maybe 2 full power engagements before requiring substantial downtime. Then we make them count. Thunderhawks will deploy your machines via dropships. You will strike the primary ritual site, a former cathedral converted into something else. Destroy the site, kill the sorcerers maintaining it, evacuate survivors. Simple by our standards. What about the Chaos Marines? Tommy asked, his voice steady despite the protective ward around his neck glowing faintly. Dark Angels will handle them. You focus on daemons and cultists. Avoid direct confrontation with traitor Astartes if possible. They're centuries old, veterans of countless battles, and will kill you before you realize you're fighting. Balthus zoomed the display. Your insertion point is here. Expect heavy resistance, expect demonic manifestation, expect things that will try to corrupt you through psychological warfare. Trust nothing you see, believe nothing you hear, stay together. One more thing, Asmodai added. Rangers, if you encounter a space marine in black and red armor with a skull motif, do not engage. Call me immediately. He is mine. The briefing continued for another hour, covering contingencies, extraction points, and about 100 things that could go wrong. When it finally concluded, the Rangers returned to their quarters to suit up. Jason checked his morpher. The power coin glowed softly, not as bright as it should be, but functional. Around him, his team did the same. They'd survived Orc Gargants and Plague Marines. Now they were about to face actual demons. Team, whatever happens down there, we stay together. We don't split up. We don't take unnecessary risks. We save who we can, but we don't throw our lives away. Agreed? Agreed, they chorused. Then it's morphin' time. One more time, for 300 million people who don't even know we're coming to help them. They stood in formation, red, black, blue, yellow, pink, white, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, impossibly far from home, preparing to fight literal hell with nothing but martial arts, giant robots, and the stubborn belief that heroism mattered. The Vinco Redemptor dropped out of the warp above Salvation's End. Immediately, the Chaos Cruiser opened fire. The battle had begun. In the warp, the Chaos Gods watched with interest. This would be entertaining. These pure souls, these uncorrupted warriors, these champions of hope and light. Oh, how delicious it would be to break them. Korn wanted their martial prowess. Tzeentch craved their potential. Nurgle desired their resilience. Slaanesh hungered for their youth and passion. But it was a fifth presence that smiled most widely. A presence that dealt in hopelessness, in the corruption of noble ideals, in showing heroes that their sacrifices meant nothing. The chaos god known as Malal, the renegade god, had plans for the Power Rangers, and those plans began with showing them exactly how powerless they truly were in the 41st millennium.
The drop from orbit was controlled violence. Thunderhawks screaming through atmosphere thick with warp corruption, dodging anti-aircraft fire that stitched the sky with explosive death. Inside the troop compartment, the Rangers held tight as their Dinozords, secured in massive cargo clamps, shook with each impact against the hull. 30 seconds to drop, the pilot voxed. Emperor protect you, Rangers, you're gonna meet it. The cargo bay doors opened, and Capital City Prime sprawled below them, a metropolis of 12 million souls that had once been beautiful. Gothic architecture mixed with modern efficiency, parks and plazas where families gathered, a civilization that had prospered for 2,000 years. Now it burned. The cathedral, their target, rose from the city's heart like a tumor. Once dedicated to the God Emperor, it had been desecrated. Its spires dripped with something that wasn't quite blood. Symbols carved into its walls glowed with sick purple light, and at its center, visible even from altitude, a massive ritual circle pulsed with energy that made reality scream. Rangers, drop now! The clamps released. 5 Dinozords plummeted toward the corrupted city, their pilots already morphing inside the cockpits. It's morphin' time! Tyrannosaurus, Mastodon, Triceratops, Saber-toothed tiger, Pterodactyl. The transformation energy blazed, red, black, blue, yellow, pink, 5 beacons of pure power cutting through the warp-tainted atmosphere. Jason felt the grid's connection snap into place, weaker than it should be, but still there, still real, still his. The Dinozords landed with impacts that cratered streets. Citizens scattered, some fleeing, others standing in dazed confusion, their minds already halfway to damnation. And emerging from every shadow, every building, every dark corner, came the enemy. Cultists in thousands, humans who'd given themselves to chaos, their bodies twisted by mutation, their weapons crude but effective. They charged the Dinozords with religious fervor, screaming prayers to dark gods. Non-lethal if possible, commanded Jason, even as his Tyrannosaurus swept its tail through a mob, scattering them like bowling pins. These people might still be saved. Jason, Billy's voice was tight with horror, my sensors are reading their biosigns. They're already gone. The mutations aren't superficial. They're genetic, down to the cellular level. There's no cure for this, no saving them. Jason's hands tightened on his controls. Every doctrine Zordon had taught said preserve life when possible. But these weren't people anymore. They were walking corruption, and mercy meant, Jason, are you certain? 98% certain. Jason, I'm sorry, but
A cultist with too many arms scaled the Tyrannosaurus's leg, his claws finding purchase in armor plating. His face was mostly mouth now, teeth upon teeth, and he screamed with voices that shouldn't exist. Jason made his choice. The Tyrannosaurus's arms swatted the cultist away. The body tumbled, struck pavement, didn't move again. Understood. Switch to lethal force. Emperor, forgive us. The battle became slaughter. The Rangers had never fought like this, not killing monsters created by Rita's magic that vanished upon defeat, but killing humans. Corrupted humans, yes, damned humans, but humans nonetheless. Every shot from the pterodactyl's missiles, every stomp from the mastodon, every slash from the saber-toothed tiger added to a death toll that would haunt them forever. "Rangers!" Asmodee's voice crackled through their comms. "The ritual site! You must destroy it before—" Reality tore open. The cathedral's roof exploded upward as something emerged. Not a creature, not a being, a presence, a demon prince of Tzench, all impossible angles and ever-changing form, its existence a violation of sanity itself. It stood 3 stories tall, wreathed in warp flame that burned in colors that shouldn't exist. "Little warriors," it spoke, and the sound bypassed their ears to resonate directly in their minds. "Come to save the doomed? How delightful, how futile! I am Karatrix, the ever-changing. I have existed for millennia. I have corrupted saints and broken heroes. What are you but children playing dress-up?" "We're Power Rangers," Jason said, his voice steady despite his terror. "Dinozords battle mode!" The 5 Zords charged as one. The Tyrannosaurus's jaws snapped at the demon's shifting form.
The Triceratops's horns gored through what might have been a leg. The mastodon's tusks found purchase in something vital. Karatrix laughed, and the sound broke windows across 3 city blocks. "Pain? I am beyond pain. Damage? My form is infinite. You cannot kill what was never truly alive." The demon's counterattack came in the form of warp fire. Not heat, pure change, transmutation. The energy struck the mastodon's flank, and for a horrifying second, Zack felt his Dinozord's armor trying to become something else. Flesh, stone, liquid. The morphin grid screamed in protest, fighting to maintain coherence. "Shields failing," Zack shouted. "This thing's attacking the grid directly." "Then we combine," Jason made the call. "Megazord sequence, now!" They'd trained for this transformation 10,000 times. Even in this corrupted reality, even with their power compromised, muscle memory took over. The Dinozords separated, reformed, combined. 30 seconds of vulnerability as they became one. Karatrix didn't attack during the transformation, not because of mercy, but because it wanted to see what they would become. Tzench, the architect of fate, loved surprises. The Megazord rose, power sword igniting in its hands. "Impressive," the demon purred. 5 souls merged into one vessel. Such delicious synchronization, such perfect trust. "Tell me, Red Ranger, how will you feel when I corrupt one of your friends? When I make Blue Ranger see you as his enemy? When Yellow Ranger's courage becomes suicidal recklessness? When Pink Ranger's compassion becomes crippling weakness? When Black Ranger's humor becomes mocking despair?" "You won't," Jason said through gritted teeth. "The morphin grid protects us." "Does it? Or does it merely delay the inevitable? You've been in our universe for days now. I can feel the strain. See how your precious grid weakens with every passing moment. How long before it fails completely? How long before you're just frightened children in a nightmare that never ends?"
The Megazord swung. The power sword carved through the demon's torso, and for one glorious moment they thought they'd won. Then Karatrix reformed, completely unharmed. You cannot win this fight. Inside the cockpit, the Rangers felt something they'd never experienced before. True despair. The realization that they were genuinely, catastrophically outmatched. This wasn't a monster they could defeat with teamwork and determination. This was an entity that existed on a level they couldn't even comprehend, let alone harm. "Jason," Kimberly's voice was small, "what do we do?" Jason's mind raced. They couldn't hurt it, couldn't kill it, but the demon wasn't their real objective. The ritual was. "Billy, the ritual site, can we destroy it while the demon's focused on us?" "The cathedral structure is already compromised from the demon's emergence. If we could destabilize the foundations—" "Do it!" The Megazord shifted tactics. Instead of fighting the demon, it charged past it toward the cathedral itself. The power sword came down not on Karatrix, but on the building's main support column. "No!" The demon's amusement vanished. "You cannot disrupt the great work." But they could. The column cracked. The cathedral's already compromised structure groaned. The ritual circle, painted in blood and other things across the cathedral floor, began to destabilize. Karatrix attacked with everything it had: warp fire, transmutation, pure madness given form. The Megazord shields collapsed, warning alarms screamed, their power reserves plummeted, 40%, 30, 20. "Hold together," Jason commanded, even as he felt the grid connection fraying. "Just a few more seconds." The power sword struck again. The cathedral collapsed inward, the ritual circle breaking apart as tons of corrupted stone crushed it into oblivion. The effect was immediate. The warp energy holding the demon in reality snapped. Karatrix screamed, not in pain, but in fury, as it was sucked back into the immaterium. "This isn't over, Rangers. We will meet again, and next time your precious grid won't save you." Then it was gone. The Megazord stood in the ruins of the cathedral, power reserves at 11%, barely functional. Around them, Capital City Prime burned. The cultists, without demonic leadership, were being systematically eliminated by Dark Angel's kill teams. In orbit, the Vinco Redemptor had crippled the corruption cruiser. They'd won. So why did it feel like losing?
The Megazord separated into individual Dinozords, each machine barely operational. The Rangers demorphed, materializing on the ground amid the ruins. Their bodies ached in ways that went beyond physical. The grid's struggle against this universe's rejection had left them spiritually exhausted. "Sound off," Jason managed, his voice hoarse. "Present," came 5 responses, weary, traumatized, but alive. Around them, Capital City Prime was a war zone. Fires burned unchecked. Bodies, cultist and civilian alike, littered the streets in numbers that made Jason's stomach turn. In the distance, bolter fire echoed as Dark Angels cleared remaining resistance. A Thunderhawk descended, its landing creating a dust cloud that stung their eyes. Asmodai emerged, his armor scorched and torn, but he moved with the same implacable purpose. "The fallen escaped," he said without preamble, and Jason heard centuries of frustration in those words. "But the ritual is broken. Salvation's end will survive. Approximately 247 million souls remain uncorrupted. By Imperial standards, a miraculous success." 53 million dead, Billy said quietly, his analytical mind doing the math automatically. 53 million people who won't see tomorrow. 53 million who died human instead of being transformed into demonic spawn, Asmodai countered. "In this galaxy, that counts as mercy. You gave them the Emperor's peace." Trini sat heavily on a piece of rubble, her head in her hands. "Is that what we're supposed to tell ourselves? That death is mercy? That 53 million corpses is victory?" "Yes,"
Asmodai said simply, because the alternative was 300 million damned souls and a permanent warp rift that would have consumed this entire sector. You prevented that. You fought a Daemon Prince and survived. You disrupted a ritual that should have been unstoppable. By any metric, you succeeded. We didn't kill it. That thing, Kyratrix, we didn't even hurt it. We just broke its anchor. It's still out there, probably planning revenge right now. Welcome to warfare in the 41st millennium, Asmodai replied. Victories are temporary. Enemies return. The war never truly ends, but each battle won buys time. Time for humans to live, love, have children, make meaning in a meaningless universe. That is what we fight for. Not grand victories, but stolen moments of peace. Zack laughed bitterly. Man, your recruitment posters must be terrible. Despite everything, Asmodai's lips twitched. It might have been a smile. Indeed, we find join the Imperial Guard, fight endlessly until you die screaming, doesn't attract many volunteers. Hexacord 7-Epsilon approached, his mechadendrites covered in strange residue, possibly blood, possibly something worse. Rangers, your Dinozords sustained significant damage. Repairs will require approximately 72 hours. More concerning, your morphing grid connection shows degradation. Each transformation further destabilizes your anchor to this power source. Estimate 5 to 7 more full power engagements before catastrophic failure. The Rangers absorbed this information in silence. 5 to 7 battles. Then their powers would fail completely, leaving them stranded in the 41st millennium with no way home and no ability to fight. Then we make those battles count, Jason said, forcing steel into his voice. Hexacord, can you help us find a way back to our universe? Possibly. The warp rift that brought you here left traces. With sufficient study and perhaps access to Eldar Webway technology or a functioning warp drive under controlled conditions, a return portal might be constructed. Probability of success, 17%. 17% is better than 0, Billy said. We work with that. In the meantime, Asmodai said, you will remain with the Dark Angels. The Inquisition has granted me temporary custody, though that could change at any moment. There are other battles, other worlds needing defense. You may choose to help or remain aboard the Vinco Redemptor while we attempt to send you home.
Kimberly looked at her team. We didn't come this far to sit on the sidelines. People need help. People always need help, Trini added quietly. And we're Power Rangers. This is what we do. Even if it kills us? Tommy asked, echoing the question he'd posed to Jason days ago. Especially then, Jason answered, because if we stop being heroes just because it's hard, we're not really heroes at all. We're just survivors. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't sign up to just survive. They stood together amid the ruins of Capital City Prime. 6 teenagers from Angel Grove, impossibly far from home, their powers failing, facing a universe that would crush them without a second thought. And they chose to keep fighting anyway. Asmodai watched them and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Not hope. He trained himself never to hope, as hope led to disappointment, and disappointment led to failure. But something adjacent to hope, possibility, the sense that perhaps, just perhaps, the universe's grinding darkness could be pushed back, even if only for a moment. Then we return to the ship, he said. Rest, repair, prepare. There is always another battle, always another world, always another chance to prove that the galaxy has not completely devoured every last shred of light. As they boarded the Thunderhawk, none of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows. A space marine in black and red armor, his face hidden behind a skull motif helmet, his power sword thrumming with barely contained rage. The fallen that Asmodai hunted,
and he was very interested in these Rangers who disrupted his plans. Very interested indeed. In orbit, the Vinco Redemptor finished crippling the Chaos Cruiser and prepared to make warp jump to the next war zone. In the ship's tech bays, servitors began repairing dinosaurs using principles they didn't understand but could replicate through observation. In the chapel, dark angels knelt before the Emperor's icon and prayed for the souls lost on salvation's end. And in the warp, Caratrix, the ever-changing, reported to its patron god about the warriors from another universe. Warriors whose souls remained stubbornly pure despite every attempt at corruption. Warriors whose technology operated on principles that even the architect of fate found intriguing. Tzeentch listened to the report and smiled with its 900 mouths. Yes, the Chaos God whispered across infinite probability threads. These Rangers will be useful, not as pawns, they're too strong for that, but as catalysts. Their presence changes equations, alters destinies, creates possibilities that did not exist before. Shall we destroy them, Great Changer? Caratrix asked. No, we shall watch them, learn from them, and when the moment is right, we shall show them the ultimate truth, that hope is merely delayed despair, that heroism is just pride wearing a mask, that in the end, everyone serves chaos, they just don't know it yet. But Tzeentch, for all its infinite cunning, made one critical mistake. It assumed that Power Rangers operated on the same principles as warriors of the 41st millennium, that enough trauma would break them, that sufficient horror would corrupt them, that eventually the grinding darkness would win. It had never encountered the morphing grid before, had never faced warriors whose power came not from rage or despair or ambition, but from teamwork, courage, and the stubborn insistence that heroism mattered even when the universe said it didn't. The great game had new pieces on the board, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the outcome was genuinely uncertain.
3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of battles across a dozen worlds. The Rangers fought orc invasions on Forge worlds, defended pilgrim ships from pirate attacks, even stood beside Imperial Guard regiments holding the line against Tyrannid swarms. Each victory cost them, power reserves depleting, the grid's connection fraying further, their bodies accumulating scars that even Ranger healing struggled to mend. But they didn't break. They adapted. Billy worked with Hexacord 7 Epsilon to modify their morphers, extending their operational time by 17%. Trini developed new combat techniques specifically for fighting in the 41st millennium's harsh conditions. Zack learned to read battlefield dynamics from hardened guard officers. Kimberly discovered that compassion could exist even in this darkness, finding moments to comfort civilians who'd forgotten what kindness looked like. Tommy wrestled daily with chaos whispers, but remained uncorrupted, his will hardened by each failed temptation. And Jason learned that leadership in this universe meant making impossible choices and living with the consequences. They'd saved approximately 400 million lives across their engagements. They'd killed tens of thousands of corrupted humans, hundreds of demons, and earned grudging respect from even the most skeptical Dark Angels. But the question of getting home remained unanswered. 17% probability is now 23%. Hexacord 7 Epsilon reported one evening, his mechadendrites interfacing with data slates. Your morphing grid energy signature is sufficiently documented. Construction of a dimensional rift generator is theoretically possible, but it would require resources beyond even Mechanicus capability. We would need cooperation. From who? Billy asked. The Eldar, Xenos who understand dimensional manipulation in ways the Imperium cannot. Or perhaps the Tau. Their technological approach differs from Imperial dogma. Or even, heretical thought, we could attempt to reverse engineer your arrival, study the original warp rift that brought you here. Which would require entering the warp deliberately, Asmodai said, entering the tech bay. Extremely dangerous, possibly suicidal, and definitely heretical by inquisitorial standards. So our options are work with aliens, commit heresy, or stay trapped here forever, Jason summarized. Essentially, yes. The Rangers exchanged glances, their silent communication honed sharper than ever by weeks of combat. We've survived this long. We can survive longer if we have to. But we're not giving up on getting home, Trini added firmly. Never giving up, Zack agreed. It's kind of our thing. Then we explore every option, Jason decided. Eldar, Tau, reverse engineering, whatever it takes. But in the meantime, we keep fighting, keep helping, keep being Rangers even in a universe that doesn't understand what that means. Asmodai nodded slowly. The Inquisition will eventually demand your custody. When that happens, I may not be able to protect you. Then we'll deal with that when it comes, Tommy said, his hand resting on Saba's hilt. We've faced Rita, Zed, and literal demons. We can handle an Inquisitor. Do not underestimate the Inquisition, but I will delay their demands as long as possible. You have proven yourselves worthy allies. Perhaps even friends, though Dark Angels are not supposed to have friends, only brothers and suspects. We'll take it, Jason said, extending his hand. Asmodai stared at the offered hand for a long moment, then clasped it, warrior to warrior, human to human, space marine to Power Ranger. Across the galaxy, battles raged. Orcs waged wars, Tyranids devoured worlds, chaos corrupted saints. The Imperium ground slowly toward oblivion, but in one small corner of that endless war, 6 teenagers from another universe fought back with dinosaur robots and martial arts and the absolute conviction that heroism mattered. They would find a way home, eventually, but until then, the 41st millennium had Power Rangers, and the galaxy would never be the same. May the Force be with you. More stories await.